Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 1 of Restoring the Roar. I am your host, Alex Loosemore. Sorry, I'm just kind of trying to get some stuff sorted out here. I'll deal with that later. All right, so we are back. This is the rebranded version of Restoring the Roar. So just kind of start off. It's been a while. What's going to be new with the show? So, first off, we're partnered with the Every Fan Sports Network. You can see the logo in the top corner there. Check them out on YouTube. Go take a look. There's a bunch of us that are paired together now and talking a bunch of different teams in the NFL. We got the Giants. We got the Chiefs. Can't remember them all off the top of my head, but there's a few different teams that are going on with the Every Fan Sports Network. So make sure to give them a look. As far as the show itself, so we got a few new segments we'll roll out week to week. Probably not every week. All of them will be on, but the weekly ones will be, we're calling it Inside the Den. Just kind of everything to do with what's going on with the Lions day to day. So today our Inside the Den will be going over coaching changes, free agency grades, just kind of catching up on all that stuff. It'll be closer to the season. We'll get injury reports, all that kind of stuff. We're going to go over a mock draft because we are, 2 weeks from tomorrow is night 1 of the NFL draft. So I'll go over the first Lions mock draft that I did. Probably have one ready to go for next week and then one for the night before the draft. And then after that, we're going to have a segment called Lions Legends. So I'm just going to kind of go through. This one probably won't be every week, but I'll go through occasionally and just pick a random Lions legend and kind of go over a bit of their career. So I'll start off with their college career, kind of what led to them being drafted, where they were drafted. Obviously, well, they're not all going to be drafted by the Lions. The majority of their success will be with the Lions. So tonight we're going to start off with Barry Sanders, the greatest Lion to ever do it. So that one makes total sense in my opinion. Definitely got to start off there. So if you like what we're doing, like, share, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Comment, let me know what you guys think, whether you agree, disagree with what I'm saying, any questions you might have. We'll get right into it here. So we're going to start off with the new segment Inside the Den, and we're going to start off with the coaching changes. All right, so as you can see on the screen here, we're going to go over the coaching changes. I'll just bring it back here. So just going to start off. I won't really go over the coaches that have been here. Obviously, Dan Campbell, those kind of guys. But guys that got promoted, new positions, or got hired onto the team this year. So we'll start off with the offensive coordinator, John Morton. He comes over after being the passing game coordinator for the Denver Broncos. Has a lot of history with Campbell. Both of them worked with Sean Payton in New Orleans, and he's now coming back. He was here 2 years ago as an offensive assistant with the Lions, went over to be that passing game coordinator with Denver, and he takes over the offensive coordinator job here, obviously left by Ben Johnson, the new head coach of the Chicago Bears. This next one here, it's one of my favorite. These next two actually are my favorite new hires coming in. A guy that lots of people know a lot about, David Shaw, the former Stanford head coach, is the passing game coordinator now. He's got a lot of history, obviously just football in general. Longtime head coach at Stanford. Worked with John Morton, I believe it was actually, with the Raiders under John Gruden in the early 2000s there. I think they worked together on that staff. This next one, is a big hire from the college ranks. A lot of teams were looking at him. We ended up with him. Running back coach Tashard Choice. Had a few good years in the NFL early on. Was drafted in, I believe, 2008. Had a successful couple of years there, and then became a really good coach. He's got a history with Jahmyr Gibbs. They worked together when Jahmyr was at Georgia Tech. Really, really great running backs coach. He's worked with Texas the last few years, so obviously Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson, the Bears running back, there as well. So he's had some really good running backs come out the last few years into the NFL. So I really like getting Tashard Choice to be our running backs coach. Our former running backs coach transitioned over to wide receiver coach, and he is still the assistant head coach. That is Scotty Montgomery. Hired him a couple years ago from the Indianapolis Colts, and he's been great. He was great with the running backs, and I don't expect any different with the wide receivers. That opening was left by Antoine Randall L. Unfortunately, he followed Ben Johnson to the Bears, so had an opening there. Scotty transfers over, allows us to get Tashard Choice. So really like what we've had going on there. Tight ends coach. Our tight ends coach, I was going to say Shane Waldron. That's not him. His name's slipping my mind right now, but he went to the Jets with Aaron Glenn. So we had an opening there. Tyler Roll was our assistant O-line coach before and transitioned to tight end coach. And Seth Ryan, the assistant, son of Rex Ryan, was our assistant wide receivers coach the last few years here. So he transfers over to the tight ends. Going to be working with Sam Laporta and Brock Wright and those guys in Detroit. The biggest name that we kept on the roster or the coaching staff this year, Hank Fraley. So he's still the offensive line coach. He has been ever since Dan Campbell stepped foot in Detroit as the head coach. But they gave him a boost with the run game coordinator. It's essentially just the title. He's been the run game coordinator. He was doing a lot of the run concepts for Ben Johnson the last couple of years here in Detroit. Gets the promotion to run game coordinator. Stays as the O-line coach. He had a lot of offers. Had a couple interviews with Seattle for their offensive coordinator. Obviously, Ben Johnson wanted him to go with him to Chicago. If I'm not mistaken, I think Aaron Glenn also wanted him with the Jets. So was highly coveted by a few different teams, but we were able to keep him in-house. He can continue working with Panay and Ragnow and Glasgow and all these guys. So I'm extremely excited about that. Now over to the defense. The defense coordinator, Kelvin Shepard, was the linebackers coach the last few years here. And this was the plan all along. When Aaron Glenn left, Kelvin Shepard was to be the DC. And they fell right into that plan. Everything sounds like he's ready to go. So we'll see if that's the case. I don't have any doubts. I'm hoping we run a little less man coverage. We were like top 2 or 3 in man coverage this past year. I'd like us to mix it up a bit more. It sounds like he wants to mix it up a bit more. So we'll see how that goes there. And then this was our big hire on the defensive side. The defensive line coach, our defensive line coach is now the DC for Mike Vrabel in New England. So we stole the defensive line coach from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Casey Rogers, and he became our run game coordinator as well. I really like this hire. It's a guy with DC experience and a guy that can kind of help Kelvin Shepard settle into that coordinator role. And then with Kelvin Shepard going to the defensive coordinator spot, Sean Dion Hamilton was the assistant under Kelvin Shepard. Kelvin Shepard's first year as the linebackers coach. Sean Dion Hamilton was still on the roster actually as a linebacker, so played for him as a coach, and then started learning under him as his assistant. So a lot of consistency with all the change, and a lot of guys that just fit right into what we're doing. So even though we had all those changes at or within the coaching staff, I don't think there's going to be much change. I think it's going to be a lot of the same stuff. It'll be interesting to see the offense just because Ben Johnson did so many trick plays. See if John Morton's going to kind of follow that, or if he's going to do his own thing, kind of follow what Sean Payton and them have done offensively over the years. I'll be very interested to see that. All right, so that was our coaching changes. Now we're going to stick with the Inside the Den segment, and we're going to go now to free agency. As you can see there in the corner, DJ Reed is the big signing of the offseason. We lost Carlton Davis. We get DJ Reed, who's younger, who's more durable, and we got him for cheaper. I got some of the big signings here. As you can see, they're all defense. We didn't have to do much offensively. And as you can see, it's mostly the front seven as well. DJ Reed solidified that corner spot. We also got some really good depth at corner that I didn't list on here because they signed after I made this. But Rock Ya-Sin and Avonte Maddox are two really good depth pieces to work alongside Reed, Terrion Arnold, the rookie first-round pick from last year, and Ennis Rakestraw, the second-round pick from last year, who it sounds like they're ready for him to take that next step. They sound confident that he'll be ready to jump into a more prominent role. So we'll see if that's the case this year. But DJ Reed, 3 years, $48 million, 31 guaranteed. If you look at what the other top corners were getting in free agency, it's right around the same years, 2 to 4, but they were getting $20 million a year. So we get DJ Reed at 16. In my opinion, he was the best corner on the market. I still wanted Davis back as my number one corner just because the consistency with the system. But I'm more than happy to get DJ Reed, especially at that price tag. One I'm not as big on for the price tag is Derek Barnes. 3 years, $25.5 million, $16 million guaranteed. He's a good player. He's struggled to stay healthy. He's been inconsistent, and they've switched up his job a lot. So he hasn't had a lot of consistency in being able to just sit there and rush the passer or being able to just sit there as a stand-up linebacker. They've changed his job a lot due to injuries everywhere else. So it'll be interesting to see. I think they'll have him as an edge rusher. Probably draft another guy. Obviously, we brought Marcus Davenport back, as you can see there. 1 year, $4.75 million, a little more than I would have liked, but I don't hate bringing him back and just seeing what he can do. He was playing pretty well the first 2.5 games before he got hurt and was out for the year. So give him another chance, see what he can do. Roy Lopez, I really like this signing. With it sounding like Lee McNeil won't be ready to go for the start of the season, Roy Lopez can step in and be that run stuffer. And then Levi Onwuzurike below him there, 1 year, $5.5 million. I thought he was good as gone. I thought somebody was going to sign him for way more money than we were willing to offer. And the rest of the defensive tackles got that money that we were expecting. But Levi chose to stay for another year. He can be that pass rushing defensive tackle until McNeil gets back, then obviously hop in the rotation. But he was solid this year. This was the first year where he was consistently healthy, and he performed pretty damn well. So I like him coming back a lot, and I like giving the 1 year prove it deal, and we'll see what he can do. But very excited to get him back. Wish we would have focused a little bit on the offensive line. Losing Kevin Zeitler hurt, especially 1 year. I believe it was only $9 million to the Titans. It's like we couldn't give him $9 million to stay and be that interior presence with Ragnow, because Glasgow struggled last year. He wasn't very good. Christian Mahogany, the rookie from last year, was solid. So we'll see what he's going to do there. I think he's going to be the starter now, but it'll be interesting to see there. All right. Now that I think I've got all the free agents out of the way there, the major ones at least. Now we'll go over the mock draft 1.0. So how I did this is I just went on to one of the mock draft websites there, and I just picked the Lions and did the full 7 rounds, and just kind of went based on who was there. So we'll walk through it here. Obviously, you can see who I've selected. You can see the trades I did up top as well. So at pick 28, there was a lot of really good defensive linemen still sitting there. And to me, the biggest need is defensive tackle and defensive end. I want one more edge rusher, one more D tackle. And to me, I think those should be the first 2 picks. So I traded 28 to Jacksonville. Jacksonville had offered 36 and a 6th round pick in next year's draft. Probably could have got a bit more in return, but that was the best offer. So went with that. Traded down to 36, and Derek Harmon was still sitting there. The other 2 that I looked at there were Donovan Ezeraku, the edge rusher from Boston College, and Nick Scorton, the edge rusher from Texas A&M. So it was Harmon was the last defensive tackle left of the guys that I really liked, and then there was just a few edge rushers left. So I went with Harmon, and the plan was we still had pick 60 in the 2nd round, so would hope that one of the edge rushers would fall to 60. And then, of course, right as all those picks went, then it was just a run on edge rushers. So I hopped in, made a trade, traded 60, 130, and a 3rd rounder next year to San Francisco for 43 to move up and get JT Tuimoloau, the edge rusher from Ohio State. As a Michigan guy, it pains me to take an Ohio State guy, but he's a baller. He's great against the run, great against the pass. He swats passes down better than most people in this draft. I think pairing him with Hutchinson, and then you get Harmon and pair him with Ali McNeil when healthy, that's a great defensive line. That's one of the better defensive lines in football, and it's a young defensive line. So I literally didn't consider anybody else because he was the last of that upper tier edge rusher on the board. So I took him without a second thought. And that was the last trade for the draft. So I went all the way to 102. And like I said, I wasn't happy with how Glasgow played. And just at this point, you need depth, whether it's offensive line. You can always use depth at wide receiver, at DB, at linebacker. I mean, we had so many injuries defensively last year. So I was just kind of going best player available for positions of depth. At 102, I was looking at Jared Wilson. Obviously, you can see I took him, the interior offensive lineman from Georgia. Then I was also looking at Tez Johnson, the wide receiver from Oregon, and Savion Williams, the wide receiver from TCU. So there were a couple wide receivers I really liked in this spot. And then, but Jared Wilson, I just had to take here. So I was really happy to see him there and just rolled with it. Sorry, these comments aren't popping up on my StreamYard, but I just saw them on Facebook here. Sean Spencer, thank you for tuning in. Says, let's go. What's going on? Just happy to be back talking football. You know how it is. Thank you for getting me back into it. So, Jerry, what's up, Alex? Thank you for tuning in, man. Hope you're doing well. Eric, I'm here for the Brock Wright updates. Never said by anyone else. Hey, I love that we kept Brock Wright. He's a great tight end, too, to pair with Sam Laporta. Ben said, welcome back, sir. I need me some roar back in my viewing life. Thank you for tuning in. Glad to be back. All right. So, yeah, pick 102. It was between Wilson, Tez Johnson, and Savion Williams. I went with Jared Wilson because the offensive line, especially the interior, kind of started to fall off at this point as well. And as you can see, I found a really wide receiver at 196, Nick Nash, the wide receiver from San Jose State. Even though Travis Hunter won the award for the best receiver, the Biletnikoff Award in college football this past year, the best wide receiver by a wide margin was Nick Nash. He's big. He's not super fast, but a bit explosive. And good at jump balls, using that frame to kind of box out DBs and come down with the ball. But there were a lot of guys I was looking at here. There was Seth McLaughlin, the center from Ohio State. There was Sebastian Castro, the safety from Iowa, and Malachi Moore, the safety from Alabama, who I was going to go with till I saw Nick Nash still sitting there. Figured could get one more wide receiver. Tim Patrick isn't going to be here forever, so get a solid third receiver and make it a really, really good trio. And then 228, there were a few different guys I was looking at. There were, obviously, I went with Jack Nelson at 228, the offensive tackle from Wisconsin. I really like his game. He's physical. He's a solid pass blocker. He's a really good run blocker. I think he could do very well learning from Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell and could potentially take over when Taylor Decker's done. So I really like that pick there. I was also looking at Brady Cook, the quarterback from Missouri. This late in the draft, you can never go wrong with taking a quarterback to compete for that second, third, fourth string, essentially practice squad guy. And especially with that emergency quarterback being the third guy, I think it's necessary to take a look at quarterbacks almost every year, at least every other year. And then a guy that I ended up taking with the next pick, Luke Lackey, the tight end from Iowa, was another guy I considered at 228. And at 244, I just went best player available at a position in need. So Luke Lackey can go in and compete with, I think he'd compete for tight end 3. I don't think he'd quite push Brock Wright and those guys. Definitely not yet, maybe eventually. But he could push Shane Zylstra and those guys for that tight end 3 spot. I also looked at Dante Trader Jr. from Maryland. I really like his game. Almost took him, but then figured the tight end was probably the bigger need. So that's my mock draft. I'll have another one ready to go for next week, but let me know what you guys think. Whether you agree, whether you like some picks, don't like some of those picks, let me know, and we can discuss that in the comments. All right. Moving into the last segment here. As I said before, Lions legends. So those are some of the guys I'll be talking about over the next few weeks here. We're starting tonight with Barry. Let's get right into it. All right. So as I said before, this week it's going to be Barry Sanders. If we're going to start it off, why not start it off with the greatest Lion to ever play? It's got to be Barry off the bat. Just looking at some of the comments here. Sean said, oh, snap, Tez Johnson is legit. You know, Alex Schomburg will love that. He's a guy I'm really high on. It was just that offensive line, like I said, kind of started to slip a little bit. So, there was that there. Bringing Seth Hennigan, man, I would love to. He was off the board by the time I was considering a quarterback, so that sucked. But maybe in this next mock draft I can steal him. Sean, again, did you trade with Washington? No, we traded with Jacksonville and then traded up with San Francisco. Night Train, yeah, and Barry, yeah, two of the greatest lines to ever do it. So we'll definitely show Night Train some love in the coming weeks here. But we're going to start off with Barry. So right off the bat, he went to college at Oklahoma State, won the Heisman Trophy in 1988. These numbers came up quite a bit because Ashton Genty, who's going into the draft this year, was trying to catch Barry. He fell just short, but 2,850 rushing yards and 42 touchdowns. Absolutely insane. Saw a comment here. Ben said Barry Sanders, Megatron, Sue, and Stafford would be on my Lions Mount Rushmore. It's hard to argue with that. I mean, I love Night Train Lane. And I mean, there's also Bobby Lane and those kind of guys from the past as well. But it's just like, if you're going to move one of them in, who do you take off? The first guy to go, I think, would be Stafford. Maybe Sue, but just because he only played the 4 years. But both those guys were so impactful in Detroit that it'd be hard to knock either of them off. So, yeah, that'd probably be my 4 as well. But then there's Spielman and those guys from the 90s as well, that it's just like, it's such a hard list, even though this team hasn't been very good for a lot of years. I'm glad to see them doing well now. But so back to Barry. He was drafted 3rd overall in the 1989 draft. Again, great draft class off the bat. There was Aikman, there was Dion. Of course, Green Bay kind of sucked at the 2nd overall pick. They were the only bad pick there in the top 5, 6, 7 picks, whatever it was. There was Barry, there was Dion. I believe Derek Thomas was in this draft as well. Just a phenomenal draft class. We were lucky to end up with Barry at the 3rd overall pick. And then some of his accomplishments here: spent all 10 years in Detroit with the Lions. He won the 1989 Offensive Rookie of the Year. He won the Offensive Player of the Year in 1994 and 97, also winning the MVP in 97. If I'm not mistaken, it was a co-MVP with Brett Favre. He was a Pro Bowler every year of his career and was an All-Pro every year of his career as well. 89 to 91, first team All-Pro, then 92, 93, second team. Back to the first team in 94 and 95, then second team 96, back to the first team in 97, and then the last year, second team All-Pro in 1998. And he was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in the class of 2004 with 15,269 career rushing yards, which is currently 4th all-time, and 99 career rushing touchdowns, which is 11th all-time. And you're only starting to see some guys kind of touch these numbers. Frank Gore, who played forever. Adrian Peterson's right there. But a lot of these numbers are going to be hard for running backs nowadays to touch, just because it's become such a pass-heavy league. A lot of teams are doing running backs by committee. So Barry won't fall too much more than what he's been here. But depending who you talk to, one of the greatest, or arguably the greatest running back to ever do it. Everyone that I've talked to has him at least in the top 3. Glad he was a Lion. It was one of those guys that he retired just before I was born. His last year was right as I was born. And so it was kind of one of those guys I had to learn after, but was so much fun to watch. All the highlights. You could go watch Barry Sanders highlights for hours, and it's constantly him making guys look silly. Running to the right, there's nothing there. Run all the way back to the left, and all of a sudden it's a wide open lane for a touchdown. Spinning guys, juking guys, hurdling guys. He was electrifying. So I felt there was nobody better to start off this Lions Legends segment with than Barry Sanders, the greatest Lion to ever do it. That is the first Lions Legends segment. And that's all I got. It's a short little show to start it off. But we are back. It'll be every Wednesday night. Try to be on for 9:30 Eastern. There are a couple things I was trying to work with before the show here. Fix them up after the show here. And but we'll be ready to go and see you next Wednesday. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you like what we're doing, like, share. If you're on Facebook, comment, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. There's going to be more exclusive stuff on YouTube, mainly just kind of clipped the segments for this show. They will be posted individually on YouTube. And maybe down the line there will be some YouTube exclusive content. But yeah, again, thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next